My family tried to humiliate me. They kicked me out of my cousin's wedding, but then later on, they realized, oh, I guess he's not a failure like we thought. He's actually earning 6 figures a year, so let's reconcile with him. Well, I'm not going to let it slide, so here's what I decided to do. I need a fair and unbiased judgment. Am I the a-hole for accidentally letting it slip that I have 6-figure income from my job at a family get-together and not giving them a chance to make amends? Mind you, my family hates me and even kicked me out of a wedding barely a month ago. I've been trying to be amicable, but they make it really hard for me to do that. This one's going to need plenty of backstories just to provide some context for you to understand my positioning here. So here we go. I'm 26 and male, and I'm a humble and hardworking professional, quietly rising in the tech industry ranks. I developed an app, and I'm an ethical hacker. I work alongside tech giants. I earn a lot through my app and through all my other employment in the tech industry. I met a younger man named Callum when I was in high school, but we never really got to know each other. But as fate desired, we met at a mutual friend's wedding. Well, we hooked up that night and have been together ever since. He proposed to me 3 months ago, and I said yes. We've been engaged, but we're taking it slow, planning on getting married much later this year. Callum is the co-founder of my app. He manages the business side while I'm the techie. We're the perfect team, and I'd be nowhere without him. I love him very much, and he's the only person in my life, truly. I'm completely alone without him. I don't really believe in soulmates, but this man feels like an algorithm written for me. He fits me like a jigsaw puzzle. Moving on, I'm putting most of my money into savings because I don't really have much to spend on, except my cat, who has a very lavish life. I keep a low profile despite my increasingly affluent status, avoiding ostentation. I mean, it's kind of in my genes to show off. My entire family doesn't. Guess I'm somehow ended up being a better person than them, though. Anyways, I don't boast or flaunt my money at all. My father told me the easiest way to keep my money was to keep my assets to myself and not brag. Well, that's when I was a child, and I don't really talk to him anymore. When I was 17, I was kicked out by my mother when I came out as gay. My mother's sister, Darla, was the head of the family and was a dominating presence. She would decide who was worthy of the family and who wasn't. My cousin Cassie got pregnant in high school and found out too late to get rid of the baby, so she kept her child, and her mother, Lilac, supported her throughout her journey. Unfortunately, her baby daddy wussed out, so he's raising the kid on her own. Well, Darla was not happy with that and shunned them both from the family and told them to never ever to return. They've been roughing it and getting barely by all these years. They were the black sheep anyways, the only part of the family that wasn't well-to-do. So, yeah, that's the fate of anyone who does not fit in her conservative little box of ideals. I mean, she does recreational drugs, but I guess that's better than being gay, right? Well, she's influenced my mother and made her shun me too. Though it was not as severe as Cassie and Aunt Lilith's treatment. They all kept in touch despite being derogatory and mean to me all the damn time. It was a rough couple of years, but I pulled through over time. By 20, I could sustain myself really well for a person that age. My skills were high-paying, and they got me pretty far in life at quite a young age. I mean, I'm no Zuckerberg, but I'm content where I'm at. My mother cut off contact with me entirely, and my father would try, but my mother would not let him talk to me. I mean, he'd still sneak out of the house to text me a good night, or, "Are you doing all right?" I'm the only child, so without my parents, I was pretty lonely. I could not even seek comfort from my cousins, though, trust me, I've tried. All of them are snakes, homophobic and jealous, and they'd kick a member out of their family if they did not fit into their little perfect construction of a family hierarchy. Well, while my mom still won't talk to me, I'm still connected with my father, cousins, aunts, and uncles, and grandparents. Even though they made snide comments and backhanded insults while I'm there, I tried to be civil. I support them mostly and attend all the get-togethers. I bring Callum around sometimes, but my family think it's funny to poke and prod at him. He is pretty hot-headed, and they will irk him on purpose. Darla's daughter, Sarah, called him a girly pop the other day. Like, what does that even mean? I don't really know, but he was not happy about it. He sometimes sighs and refuses to come, which I totally get, but he also says I should not go either. I would agree with him now. Much too late for that, but I needed validation from my family and cannot let go that easily. You get the gist. I'm gay, and my family kicked me out for it. And they pull that stuff on anyone who dares to be different. Basically, my relationship with my family is fraught with tension and petty jealousy. My family's notorious for their vitriol and disdain towards those less fortunate of them. I've always tried to maintain the bridge, bending my back to their whims. Anyways, moving on to why I'm writing this post and why I need help from strangers on the internet. Sarah invited me, only me, not Callum, to her wedding about a month ago. I was actually planning on smoothing things over with my mother and clear the dark clouds that she settled over the relationship between me and my dad. I was finally a little hopeful, considering they reached out first. Boy, was I wrong. The hostility of my family peaked at Sarah's wedding, and when I reached, I was unjustly targeted with an array of snide remarks about my attire and lifestyle. They called my magenta tux distasteful, even though it wasn't flashy and was very well tailored and stylish. Sarah kept poking fun at the fact that Callum was not by my side and that I did not even have a partner worth bringing out anywhere. Well, Darla said I was a useless addition to the family for doing a random computer job instead of a real manly job. Then my mother broke her years of silence. She scoffed at Darla's use of the word manly and said nothing about me at all was masculine. Well, I was fine with that. Nothing I wasn't used to. She crossed the line, however, when she said that Callum was a poor idiot who could not tell a diamond from a crystal. She starts talking about how Callum was a man who just likes a lot of attention with no self-respect, seeing the opportunity of marrying into a rich family and jumping at it. She said he was the girl in our relationship and that we were both going to burn in hell. Well, I stopped her right then and there and calmly told her to stop talking about my boyfriend like that. When she did not stop, I absolutely lost it. I flipped her the bird and poured my glass of water over her head. People just stood there watching and time froze. Then Darla opened her mouth and passed her judgment. I was unceremoniously ejected from the event, accused of tarnishing the family's prestige. Well, this event marked a turning point in my perception of our family, and I chose to distance myself. At least Callum was happy. Weeks later, during a rare family gathering that did not include Darla, a revelation slipped from my lips while talking to Sarah's husband about technology. I was now earning a 6-figure salary. We were casually discussing how I worked in security for the company he also worked at, and discussed the pay and everything there. But as soon as I revealed my income, everyone kind of came to a halt. A hushed silence filled the room. The family's mockery was swiftly replaced with wide-eyed shock and desperate attempts at reconciliation. They all flipped the switch. Their mockeries were now praises, and their cynical apologies and strategic affability did not escape my notice. Fed up with their hypocrisy and split personalities, I just sighed and shushed them all. I said I would not be accepting their apologies. All these days, I thought they were oblivious to the hurt that they were causing, but if they were apologizing, they must have known that their words were detrimental to my mental state. I explained that only 2 people in this family, other than my father, worth a single more minute of my attention were Cassie and Lilac. Well, cue the dramatic flashing lights. So, here came the twist that shook everyone to their cores. Unbeknownst to my family, I had been using a significant portion of my wealth to assist Cassie, Lilac, and Cassie's daughter. a branch of the family that the rest had always looked down upon. I helped them through battling homelessness, paid for meals and the toddlers' preschool supplies and other products. I got both Cassie and Lilac jobs, and they're social media handlers of my app, and paid them a regular salary too. They were almost out of debt because I've been with them when nobody else would look after them. You know, despite her own struggles, Lilac took me in for 6 months when my mother kicked me out, until I could get back up on my feet. She was like a best friend to me, and Cassie was like a sister, when I was all alone. Even Callum got along and loved Cassie so much. When this information came to light, the family was absolutely appalled. Their desperation to reconcile was now mixed with resentment towards my choice of beneficiaries. The room broke out into murmurs, but I was actually satisfied by their reaction at the time. I left, making a swift but star-like exit, leaving the room to discuss their anger openly. Sarah called me the same night, apologizing for her actions and telling me that Cassie was not worth helping. She explained how Cassie, who was, easy, who had a baby when she herself was an adult, and that proved how low her value was. She told me that since I was rich, I need to hang out with big people and network. She told me she was willing to let go of my atrocious actions at her wedding and was willing to accept Callum, though reluctantly. I told her to shove her acceptances where the sun doesn't shine, and that I did not need people like her. I remained unfazed, standing by my decision. However, after a long discussion with my father, I questioned to him if I was wrong for choosing to help the ostracized family members, ignoring my own immediate family attempts to reconcile because their apologies were laced with obvious greed. He said I was being a little cruel for ignoring my cousins and that I should let up, but he wasn't happy I even mentioned my income in the first place. I consulted Cassie, and even she said I was being a little too harsh. Now, I'm iffy on whether I should reconcile or not. Maybe I'm being kind of a-hole-ish. Caleb, on the other hand, loved what I did and said I was right for finally taking a stand for him and not letting his name be dragged through the mud. He told me I should have done this long ago, but I'm not sure about this one, so guys, am I the a-hole here? What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. I hope everyone's having a fantastic day, so there's 2 updates to hop into. Let's go ahead and jump into update number 1. If you're new to the channel, click that subscribe button for daily videos. Here we go. Hey guys. Thanks for all the sweet comments and for voting me not the a-hole. I appreciate the suggestions and advice. But I don't think there's any point anymore. I don't see how some of you concluded that I was making it worse by handing out to people they hate, but I appreciate that y'all took out the time. I've broken it off with those conniving gold diggers anyways. But, I'm here to provide an update. When these people could not get to me, they did something even worse. They got to Cassie and Lilac. They somehow sleuthed and found out where Cassie lives now with her daughter. They, without Cassie's knowledge, picked her daughter out of preschool and took her out on a date. When Cassie got to preschool's front desk and told her that her aunt, that looked very similar to her, took her out, she yelled at them and swore to get her daughter right out of the school the next day and stormed out shocked and worried. Cassie got really confused and panicked, so she called me for backup. When I got there, poor darling was snot-faced and her face was a mess. I managed to get her to snap out of the panic attack and asked her what the receptionist said. I immediately figured out that it was Darla behind this. Thankfully, Cassie was a lot calmer when she found out her daughter was in safe hands, but I was fuming this time. We looked everywhere around the small locality, but found her nowhere. Luckily, I thought to look at the one place that I'd find her. I looked at Sarah's Snapchat story. Darla and them had taken Cassie's young girl out to McDonald's, and they were having a lot of fun, actually. So we hunt them down, and I very publicly denigrated them all. Cass was just happy to see her, but I could not take this BS anymore. I warned them that if they came any closer, I'd make sure that they rotted in jail. I did not let them say a word and went on talking until I said leave and they scampered away. Mom called me that evening asking me to apologize to her sister and finally join the family back. I called her a female dog and asked her to never call me again. After she insulted my fiancé, that was it. I called Dad later though and asked him to take care of her because she seemed hurt by my words. I don't regret a word though. Well, that's it for this update. Nothing else has really happened in the past few weeks that's worth mentioning. Bye! Update number 2. Hey guys, it's me again, and I'm back with the final update for y'all. Stunning revelation. They can't let me go this time around. Wow, it's been a couple of months since Sarah's wedding and the get-together. Of course, I've been getting plenty of texts, surprisingly a lot of them from Darla and my mother. The sisters are back at it, tormenting me. They're essentially coercing me into forgiving them. I don't even think that's legal. Like, Mom called the other day and said that if I don't let her back into my life and accept her, quote, really, truly heartfelt apology, then she'd lose her only child and fall into a loneliness depression spiral. I literally just laughed and hung up the phone. Was that all she had? Explains why her little sisters has more control over the family than her. Poor woman can't even get her son back. When I blocked their numbers, they started to email me. What the hell, am I right? Darla and Sarah showed up at our doorstep the other day, with flowers and all. Sat them down for tea and cake, and they told me all about the turmoil in the family over me helping Cassie raise her daughter. They were very disapproving, still, and told me I deserved to be high up in the family hierarchy for my achievements at such a young age, and they said my other aunts and uncles were terribly sad I was wasting my energy on the black sheep who did not even earn respect or have values. They went on to tell me they Googled my name and found my app. They saw the LLCs I was working for, and they were sorry they did not see my potential earlier. I told them I don't care. I was still pretty mad over them taking Cassie's daughter without permission. I told them to sod off, and that I did not care what they thought about me. Well, they cleared out pretty quickly after Callum came out in his tiny workout shorts from the gym. When me and Callum were at Bora Bora, though, their harassment and exploitations attempted just got even worse. Oh yeah, time for the big update. So, me and Callum got married. We went all out on the wedding day, splurged on everything from the destination to the centerpieces, from the beautiful venue to the outfit that our cat wore. Obviously, our fur baby was our ring bearer. We invited his family, our friends, my father. That's it, no one else. We went on an exhilarating exotic honeymoon to Bora Bora and took lots of pictures for the gram. While I've blocked most of my folks, my account is public and anyone can see where I'm at and stalk through my post if they feel like they want to. So, while we're gone, Sarah starts following Cassie on Instagram. She starts talking to her and hanging out. Cassie thought that she was there for reparations and reconciliation, so she let her into her life. In the span of only 3 days. As soon as they were on okay-ish terms, though, Sarah switched her act up. She starts playing on the offense, trying to get Cassie to cut ties with me. She called Cassie a doxy, who was sleeping around at the mere age of 16, and that her baby daddy was much older than her. She starts to guilt-trip Lilac and Cassie, claiming that they were exploiting me and using my wealth as a shield. She said that Cassie was never actually working for anything and depended on me for her debauchery. She further told her that she was the wall that was keeping me away from the rest of the family, and that I was being manipulated and brainwashed by them to break my relationship with the entire family so that they could keep all the money to themselves. Cassie begged her to stop, but Sarah claimed she would only keep it quiet if Cassie would put in good words for her with me and somehow convince me to fall back into the family circle so she could exploit me. As soon as we got back, Cassie came crying into my arms, asking for help, and help she got. I reached out to Sarah and Darla and invited them home.
I got Sarah bragging about her rich new family and how lavishly she lived. I could see that she obviously thought Cassie was influencing me into forgiving her and giving her a second chance. Then I revealed all I knew about her guilt-tripping my family and blaming them for cutting off contact with the rest of the family. Well, I told her to back off and stay away from Cassie and Lilac before I get them arrested for harassment and kidnapping of a minor. Then it just got more strange. She told me I was an a-hole for, quote, stealing her thunder, because I got married only 2 months after her and took her spotlight for myself. She told me she was pregnant, but nobody cared because they were too invested in the honeymoon shenanigans. I congratulated her on her pregnancy and told her that I was sorry I decided to go enjoy myself for the first time in, forever, not taking into consideration my magic vision that she was pregnant. I told her Cassie was my family and that if she wants to attack her, I would willingly and happily return the favor by lashing out on her family. Passive aggressiveness is the only way to deal with these people, and I kicked her out just as disgracefully as she did at her wedding, only far less publicly. And this time I made sure none of these snakes could get to me again. I got a restraining order from the entire lot, other than my father, and for now I have not seen or heard from any of them. Although my dad came over to meet me in Callum. Turns out Sarah's husband had been holding 2 ledgers, as my father informed me. He's got a case filed against him for tax fraud and embezzlement. Apparently it's all pretty big and they've gone completely broke overnight. Best of luck with that. So yeah, that's it. No more time for my fake family. Now I'm going to take care of the people that matter. Bye, y'all.
So, a lot of people in the comment section were rooting for Sam, saying, hey, I'm glad that you helped out your ostracized family members instead of the family members that honestly don't really care about you. Well, I want to hear from you guys. What exactly did you think about this story? Drop your comments down below in the comment section and let me know what you would do if you were in Sam's position and you had to go through this exact same scenario. But guys, that's not all the stories for today. I do have another story we're going to look at. So now it's time to hop into story 2 like a kangaroo.
Hey guys, I'm in a bit of a conundrum, and I can't really look to anyone else for solid advice. So I'm here on the internet to look for fair judgment and clarity. Am I the a-hole for not trying to fix my broken relationship with my stepmother after she misinterpreted my words and warped them to her narrative during an argument between me and my father? I'm 23 and female, and I'm pursuing an online degree and working from home. My parents split when I was 14, and my sister Faye and I were left behind. My parents were together since middle school, but as they grew older, my mother's financial needs kept growing, and my father realized it was not going to work out, so they split around 9 years ago. My mother took custody, and it was a clean, unmessy divorce where they both got exactly what they wanted. They kept in touch, but my mother was very resentful of him for leaving her with 2 children and practically destroying her future as she never took her studies seriously to pursue a career. She did graduate college, but she never looked for a job. She was pretty much dependent on my father, and my father obliged. She took us on vacations to other countries all the time and lived lavishly for a year or 2. My father was not that rich, though, and ended up having a huge debt because my mother blackmailed him that she would not take care of us, well, if he did not provide her. Well, eventually my father just ran out of money, so he stopped sending huge amounts to her. That's when my mother started being abusive. She'd kick us out of the house for the night if we did not finish the large amounts of food she gave us, would constantly badmouth father and make us claim him and beg him for more money. She would hit us if we failed to do our chores and prevent us from doing our homework, getting us in trouble at school. In retrospect, it wasn't really as bad as some people have it, but as a child, it was pretty rough. Meanwhile, though, my father quickly remarried within 2 years of his divorce and had a son, Andy, with his new wife, Regina, when I was 16 and my sister was 11. He failed to inform me and Faye of this, though, and his focus wasn't really on us anymore, and did not really know my mother was very abusive, and I suffered from self-harm for many years because of her actions. My father would talk to my mother often, discussing bills and sustenance, and my mother would tell him that we were fine. My father rarely kept in touch with me and Faye and would make empty promises to visit us, but was mostly absent from our lives. He would often send messages via Mom that he'd come to hang out with us, and he'd initially come by for an hour or two every 3 to 4 months, but it lessened and lessened until we'd barely even see him twice or thrice a year. He found out about the abuse at a PTM that he actually bothered to attend when I was 17. He saw my arms that had self-harm scars on them and asked me to explain. I broke down and explained everything, from her kicking us out at night to the violence. He promised to get me out of there soon and left. When I turned 18, my father took me to live with him in Regina. I was oblivious to my father's remarriage until now and was shocked to the core. I felt guilty about leaving Faye at my mother's, but my father's house was too small to add another person. And anyways, Faye was 13, so he could not take her away. Meanwhile, I started going to college. One thing I really struggled with was when Regina would constantly refer to me as my dad's niece to the neighbors and her family. She didn't want to reveal that I was actually his daughter from another marriage. I could not call my father's dad in public, just because they wanted to hide that he had a previous marriage. I still decided to be mature and bow down to whatever she said, and Andy was getting along with me very well, and I got attached to him almost instantly. Faye was alone at Mom's for almost 3 months, suffering at the hands of my mother. I came up with a smart solution then, not being able to bear my sister's torment. At my request, my father sent Faye to boarding school away from my mother. In boarding school, we weren't allowed to contact Faye other than Sundays, but the telephone lines were constantly busy, so we could not talk to her at all. She came back home from vacations to Dad's house and Mom's house alternately, and she was a bit better, though she wasn't happy, quote, living out of a suitcase, as she worded it. My stepmother never treated my sister and me like her own, despite claiming to do so. However, I considered her as my mother and even treated my half-brother as a close sibling. The parents were always busy running their company and working all the time. I would take care of Andy because my parents were simply too busy. I basically parented Andy for years, eventually switching to online college and courses during the COVID quarantine. With the coronavirus economics crisis, we started facing financial difficulties, which led my father to become frustrated and take out his anger on his wife and children. My sister was mostly away at boarding school, but when she returned during quarantine, after her boarding school ended and her entrance exam prep began, she fell into a spiral of depression due to the abusive behavior of both of our parents. Regina would hide snacks from Faye so that Andy ate all of it. Faye noticed but never mentioned anything. She developed endometriosis, but Regina refused to believe she was in pain and would ask Faye just to clean her act up if she wanted to feel better. My father constantly tormented my sister and me, while my half-brother remained oblivious due to his young age. They started working from home, and somehow that was even worse than before. Now, they were overbearing and always called upon us for the smallest of things. Both of us were like real-life Cinderellas, doing all the chores because we could not afford a maid. Faye even left to my mom's house for a break because her treatment was much better than theirs, even though they aren't physically violent like our mother. When she returned, she was almost glowing, though she could not move there forever because Mom was not willing to take care of her anymore. The parents were very neglectful of Andy, though, since he did not develop social skills. He had a classic case of iPad kid, watching Coco Melon all day. The parents ignored his nutritional needs. Honestly, Andy is as thin as a stick. His mother barely tried to get him to eat, and he broke his arm while bracing himself during a fall. Yeah, that's how weak he was. He did not really listen to me or Faye because Dad would shout at us a lot and he started believing that we were actually stupid. Soon, the quarantine ended, but things weren't looking up for the business. My father started crumbling and both me and Faye took up jobs to sustain, however small. One thing that really got to me was the fact that my father never let Faye or me out of the house for anything, because he had trust issues and did not want us to have boyfriends or anything. So, now we'll come to why I'm writing this post. One day, our parents left me alone at home to handle everything, and on that same day, my sister had an accident while learning to ride a motorbike. She broke a couple of small bones in her foot, and that took up some time. I had to rush both my siblings to the emergency room, which caused me to neglect some accounting work my father had assigned me. I had to supervise Andy and make sure he ate, which he did because I encouraged him unlike his mother. I cooked, cleaned the house up, and let our dogs out into the backyard. I also had a washing machine that needed to be moved to our house from downstairs. Faye, being the strong, muscly one, tried to help, but she was clearly in a lot of pain, so I somehow managed to get it up all on my own. When the parents returned home, my father berated me for not completing the accounting work and called me useless. He even said I was incompetent and that he should not expect anything from the likes of me. He went on for almost an hour, poking at my insecurities and even bringing up my past of self-harm and calling me frail. This was a daily occurrence, but I finally reached my breaking point and told him that I was busy taking care of my siblings. My father argued that I could have left them alone, but Andy had a habit of running away and stealing money. I suggested that if he had such a problem, he should take his son with him next time. My stepmother was really hurt by what I said, but honestly, I did not mean it in a malicious way. I wasn't even talking to her, I was talking to my father. I hoped my father would understand what I meant, but he simply chose not to reply to me. I just thought that if they did not appreciate my style of babysitting, then they should have taken my half-brother with them instead. Whenever they were busy, they just put an iPad into the kid's hand and let him watch whatever he wanted to. I found this unacceptable and refused to take care of him that way. However, my stepmom refused to listen and accused me of not considering him as my brother. She said I never really considered Andy my own brother in the first place, and that I did not actually love him. It wasn't true, but she would not believe me. This really hurt. I've practically raised the kid, got him to school, packed his lunchbox, got him to do his homework, fed him while they could not be bothered. Hell, I've even changed his diapers. I could not believe that even for a second Regina would think that I thought of Andy any less than my brother. In fact, he was more than a sibling to me. I was his guardian at that point. He is the same to me as Faye. In fact, I've spent more time parenting Andy than I've collectively hung out with Faye. Well, Faye tried to side with me, saying that even if it were her I had to babysit, I'd still say the same thing. Regina then called me selfish for not taking responsibility of my siblings and that it was my duty to watch over them. She did not give me a single chance to explain and excused me of all my duties and told me I could sit in my room and do whatever the heck I wanted. I tried to respond, but she refused to hear a thing that I said. So, in response, my stepmother decided to punish me by revoking all my responsibilities and telling me not to contribute anything to the household. She said if the burden was that much, I did not have to do anything at all and could simply waste my day doing whatever I wanted. Hey, that's less work for me, right? If I'm not going to be appreciated but demeaned instead, I don't even want to contribute. She could not ever accept us as children, let alone her children, and treated us like grown-ups when we were teenagers. She doesn't give her kid food, but I'm the bad guy. She neglects him, but I'm not acting like his sister. My dad did not even comment. I agreed to her demands and now refuse to do anything. It's become a standstill between us, and as soon as the argument ended, they all went to a weekend nature recluse to take a break, closing any chances for communication and resolution. When she came back, she did not even look at either of us. Even though Faye did absolutely nothing, She even tells her son to stay away from me and started being rude to my sister, who had nothing to do with the argument. Faye's been trying to reconcile with Regina and not let their bond break, but Regina's still treating her like crap. I've been catching up on my studies and working non-stop these past few days. It's actually been pretty peaceful for me. I still talk to Andy, obviously. I'm way too attached to ever give up on him. Andy made a very weird comment the other day, though, saying he was an annoyance to everybody and that everybody hated him. I realized that Regina's manipulation were having a detrimental effect on his mindset, and he thought nobody liked him. I've been spending a lot of time with him and try to reassure him that I love him more than anything else and that he'd never be an inconvenience to me. Speaking of inconveniences, my sister's facing one. Faye now brings me food to my room, works alone and does all the chores by herself. She cooks, cleans, and keeps the house spotless all on her own. It's frustrating to both of us because Faye has to pick up the workload that I used to handle and she has to listen to both of us constantly ranting about each other. She has to go out on her way to get things done, and Regina keeps getting her to lift and carry heavy furniture up and down only because she goes to the gym. In case y'all forgot, Faye has some minor fractures in her foot from when her bike fell on it and she got stuck under the weight. She's understandably angry because she's caught in the middle of this tense situation that has nothing to do with her. She understands where I'm coming from, but right now she's mad at me for putting her in the situation and making her burn out. She called me an a-hole for not even getting a plate of food for myself, while Regina was in the kitchen and that she had to, quote, baby me while she was hurt. While I agree with her and feel terrible for putting her in that situation, I refuse to put up with my parents' bullcrap and I'm planning on moving on once I have sufficient savings. I'm planning on taking my dogs and Faye, so it's gonna take a while for both of us to save enough money. It's really difficult for all of us, and I wish there was a way to resolve this conflict and find some peace in our home. I'm a little conflicted on whether I should just roll over and take my parents' torture for the sake of my sister, or if I should finally end it all after 5 years of constant harassment. So, am I the a-hole?
This story was full of deceit, all sorts of lies, and abuse. So, I have a question for you guys about this story. If you were in OP's position, and you already know what happened to OP throughout the story, would you have done anything different? Let me know your comments down below. Go ahead and drop them, and guys, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Mr. Reddito. I release a story every single day. So stop on by, see what story we're up to for the day, and remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya!